It's the 1st of October 2019, the start of another month, and we are definitely into autumn because we have started the month with an awful lot of rain. So we are plodding around in mud at the moment, but I'm going to do one of those jobs that I occasionally do at this time of year, which is to go down and visit people who have box loads of used jam jars for us, and we swap them for, in my co-op bag there, some of our homemade jam, so that they get jam and we get jam jars. So I'm just going to pop down the road to collect the jars. Right, so I've been to my friend's house and we've got all the jars in those bags there, so good bit of reuse, which we're all meant to do before we turn to recycling. So fewer resources going to reusing something than into breaking it up, melting it down and remaking it. When I was a child we used loose leaf tea, and we always got a tea from Rington's, and as I got older and not so much wiser, I switched to tea bags, and I've always sort of put our household waste, our kitchen waste rather, into the compost bin, and our tea bags went in with them. And then recently I discovered that tea bags have a high proportion of them have plastic fibres in, which don't rot, but go into the ecosystem. And we've actually been putting these things into our compost for years now, so we've stopped doing that. So all the tea bags that we've used recently have gone into the waste stream, into the bin. And we've also taken the decision to switch from having tea bags to going back to loose leaf tea. So when Rington's man called this morning with his usual order for our tea bags, he had to go back to the van and change it to the loose leaf tea. Now with the tea bags it's quite convenient because we can use them again. We will be doing the same with loose leaf tea, but we will strain it and it'll go into a saucer and then back into the teapot, so we get at least 2 uses out of the tea bags. But our days of convenience tea bags are at an end. Down on the allotment today, one of the neighbouring allotment holders, Kevin, decided to give us 3 cucumbers, so that large one, 2 smallish ones. Now I think because significant quantity there, so we'll probably pickle them in sweet vinegar and possibly add in a bit of courgette and onion as well. So I think that's a job for slightly later this week. It is Thursday the 3rd of October 2019. I had a whole load of grapefruit skins which had been put in the freezer, and I need the freezer space for other things. And also we had a pile of lemons which were way past their best, a bit dried out and urgently needing to be used up. So none of this was going to be wasted. Sadly we don't grow the lemons and grapefruit ourselves, but we do make marmalade. And what I've made today, and we're just about to put it into jars, is effectively a marmalade without a shred. It is the lemons and grapefruit skins all boiled up, but we didn't add any shred to it. And you can probably hear the kettle in the background is boiling up now. That's to sterilise the jam jar lids, but we're about to put the shredless marmalade into jars. So that's the liquid. It's now been tested for the setting point and it is at that point, so time to put it into jars. So we have 8 jars, hot jars. Most of them are these smaller ones, so that last one I picked up was actually only 2 of the slightly larger jars that we do. And the reason why I wanted them in the smaller jars is because a lot of those will go for swapping with other people for their garden produce. It is Thursday the 10th of October 2019. Now, today we were given by the Winnie's Community Garden a whole load of mint, and that's just a little handful of it. I mean, it was a wheelbarrow load, because they were chopping it all back, and they were going to put it on the compost heap, so I intervened in time to be able to get it, because that mint is still usable. And what we're going to do today is start the process of making mint jelly. So obviously mint won't set by itself, it has no pectin in, so we have added apples, and these are apples from one of our trees, and the apples themselves are a little bit bashed, so they're not going to last much longer, and therefore a good way to use them up is to boil them up to make jelly. So we'll leave these pans to simmer away for a couple of hours. It's Sunday the 13th of October 2019, having a bit of an evening in the kitchen, catching up with the preserve making that I started a couple of days ago, but then got sidetracked onto doing other things that I didn't get finished. So tonight we have been making green tomato chutney. So that's it simmering away in the pan now. It's just about ready to go into the jars, so they are in the oven now being sterilised. And here is the apple and mint jelly I was making the other day. As you can see, it's still in the bowl, and this is what I didn't finish doing the other night. So we're going to add a little bit extra to it. Now the reason we're going to add extra to it is because I am not convinced that there's enough pectin in it, because I think I put in a bit too much water. So the apples that went into making the green tomato chutney, they were peeled and cored, and the skins and the cores have been boiled up, and boiled up in only a small quantity of water, so that it has a much more concentrated pectin level in it. So as you can see, that's it there. So we'll strain this shortly. And the other thing about this is that there's just far too much, and what I'm going to do is have a little bit of an experiment in the next day or so, is to take some of this juice and use it to make a mint syrup. Well, we've now got the chutney into jars, 8 jars, most of them are small ones. So a lot of those will be used for swapping with other people for their produce. It is Wednesday the 16th of October 2019. I am now way behind on some of the things I was planning to do this week. Now a few days ago we set off making some mint jelly, but because I got too tied up on other things, then the liquid to make that jelly has been sitting in a big bowl in the fridge for the past few days. I'm pleased to say I've now got it out, and it is in the pan. So it's had its sugar added, so we're just waiting for it to come up to the boil and reach setting point. Now it was a huge quantity of liquid, well, huge in our terms, so we didn't want to make it all into jelly, so I've put some of it into a couple of bottles, some of the liquid, without sugar, and we'll use these as the basis for effectively soft drinks or fruit drinks. They'll sit in the fridge, and we've got some that we made from plum juice last year that we still haven't finished, and it hasn't gone off. It's really lovely drink. But what we do when we drink it is add a bit of honey to it to give it a sort of slightly sweet edge. This, I think, will probably, because there's sort of minty taste to it, we can use it in maybe as an alternative to tonic in gins and tonic or something of that nature. But we didn't want to have dozens and dozens of jars of mint jelly, so as I say, we've got an alternative use for that liquid we've got there. Right, I'm pleased to say that we've now gone through the process of making it. So we've got let's see, 8 jars in total, but 4 of them are medium sized like the one I've just picked up, and we've got one of the small ones there, so 4 small ones, and the small ones are probably likely to be used in swapping with friends over on the allotments. It is Friday the 18th of October 2019. If you've been watching us in April, you would have seen us visiting a field near to where we live, a 2.5 acre field. And you know that we put in a bid for it. It's now ours. It took about 6 months to come through, but 2 weeks ago today, it became ours, and I'm on it now. So we're really excited about this. It's a huge step up for us from just being reliant on the allotments that we have. But this field gives us the opportunity to go into livestock more and into more crop growing, but we're looking at providing crops that we can sell as well. So crops that are reasonably low maintenance, such as horseradish, rhubarb and so on, which is a bit of a niche market. And we'll be looking at to grow that sort of stuff. But there's going to be loads of space here. And there's options for all sorts of things. So we want to be wildlife friendly, so we'll be putting in hedgehog shelters, bat boxes. We want the hedgehogs here because they eat the bugs, so we want them working for us. We provide them with a home and food. All they have to do to earn their keep is to eat all the bugs. So here we are. Big ventures ahead. Really excited. Sadly, been really busy over the last couple of weeks, so this is only the second time I've been able to get along here to view it, and the grass has been cut as well by the previous owner, but unfortunately we weren't able to get it in as a hay crop. So for this autumn and winter we will still be buying in hay, but next year that problem is solved. So we're thinking paddocks for pigs and goats, and obviously lots of room to grow crops, plus this top end here we'll use for hay. Now you can see the fence along here, and it doesn't have a hedge, and I'm mad keen on hedges because they are excellent food sources if you're going foraging, but they're good for shelter for the livestock, but also they are good for the wildlife as well. So we're going to look to have a hedge planted right along this line here, and we're going to try and plant it up with traditional hedgerow species such as hawthorn, hazel, elder and so on. But it's quite a length of fencing which needs to be planted up, whereas the rest of the site, the other two sides, are already have hedging of sort in amongst along the boundary. We're also keen on putting in some ponds, and again it's for the wildlife. The frogs, toads and newts are good to have on our land because they too will eat the bugs, and they'll also be part of a food chain as well. So we'll be looking at digging some ponds soon, but we need to work out how we can get them to be filled naturally by rainwater. There's no streams run over the site, but there is one that runs down the edge. Well, it's a ditch, but I'm not sure yet whether we would need to get Environment Agency permission to divert any of the water. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to look at trying to get the ponds filled from the water that comes from the rainwater that falls on the field itself. Well, I've always wanted to say it, so here goes. Get off my land. Right, that's probably the last time I'll use that joke, but we're off now to pick hazelnuts. Well, I'm back home now, and we've got about half a bucket of hazelnuts. There are actually more than I thought, but we kind of ran out of time to get any more because unfortunately I've got to go to London later this afternoon, so I'll be leaving the house at 4 o'clock and it is 2:05 now, so other things have a call on my time. It is Tuesday the 29th of October 2019. I was out in a place called Dunstan the other day. In fact, I'm back here now, and I spotted on this grassed area at the edge of Dunstan or Dunstan Hill that there was a lot of leaf cover on the ground, and noticed this big ash tree here, and a lot of the leaves that have been shedding are still green. So this afternoon, and bearing in mind that ash is one of my goat's favourite foods, I've been out here with the rake and I've just raked up a big sack load of leaves, and they're going to have that for their feed this afternoon. So that's the big sack of leaves. It's actually a dumpy bag, and there's probably enough there to feed them this afternoon and tomorrow. Of course, this all helps put back the evil day when we've got to actually part with money to buy carrots and hay for the goats. So the more we can feed them stuff like this, the less they are going to be dependent on bought food. We've been doing some food swapping recently, and we've got a friend who's been going shooting and has provided us recently with 6 ducks, and we're paying for them with jars of jam and 1 jar of honey. So tonight we're going to have duck breasts. So there they are, 2 duck breasts with fried potato and what else have I got there? Peas in a peppercorn sauce.